Tag TV and Tag Radio. Be seen and heard by both technology users and technology producers throughout the state of Georgia and around the world. Low cost, big benefits, powerhouse online branded video and audio has arrived. Tag TV, Tag Radio, there's a lot more to know. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by Globalspeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of Globalspeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Google Atlanta office. No, not literally Google Atlanta office. I'm saying that you may not know that Atlanta is one of the very few cities in the world that has a Google office. That's right. Search a little more, or even better, listen to today's Tech Talk, and you will discover more about this unique place to work than ever, and the truth or fiction about its often discussed Google corporate culture, its hiring philosophies, the perks, the product teams, and just what products are being developed right here in the ATL. Greetings, everyone. It's Thursday, July 21st, 2011, and this is a rare, albeit special edition of Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia. Rare, simply because the Tech Talk takes a look into Google Atlanta's culture with candid insights right from the company's office co-founder and what Google calls its Atlanta site lead, Bruce Johnson. And special, well, special because it's Google, and it's right here in Atlanta, and you and I get insider insights versus sound bites in the news, just what Google's office culture is all about, and the products being developed right here in the city that are being implemented company-wide. Hear the passion, the positive committed focus, the anything possible attitude, and about a workplace that sounds more like a second home and fellow team members more like an extended family. After today's virtual visit to Google's Atlanta office, you will be touched and, quite frankly, a bit envious. And when you hear Bruce, who oversees Google Atlanta, leading multiple product teams, you'll feel like you just had lunch with your best college bud. Tech Talk goes inside Google in Atlanta as we virtually visit with Engineering Director Atlanta, site lead for Google, Bruce Johnson. Bruce, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thank you, Frank. It's good to be here.
Well, certainly everyone knows, or at least we think we know a lot about what's going on with Google, but let's be specific about the Google Atlanta office. Tell us a little bit about, you lead project teams there. What are the products that you develop here in Atlanta?
Well, we're a particularly focused office here in Atlanta, and it's the big projects that we do are software development tools. So those would be tools that other software developers use to build web applications especially. The products that people might have heard of would include things like Google Web Toolkit, which is a set of Java-based tools that allow software developers to build very rich and engaging web applications. The Google plugin for Eclipse is a sort of a general on-ramp for people who develop using the Eclipse integrated development environment, and it helps them attach to Google Web Toolkit, Google App Engine, and a variety of other Google platform technologies. It makes that really easy. And another tool, Speed Tracer, helps companies investigate why their websites might be slow, and you can really use it almost like you could say an X-ray machine into the browser to understand where time is going. If your website feels sluggish, you can use Speed Tracer to go in there and find out why. And so these are all pretty technical and complex types of tools, but if you're an engineer, it's really a whole lot of fun to work on these sorts of tools because you get to be kind of the engineer's engineer and work with other teams. So I'm particularly happy that we get to work on these kinds of products that are used both inside and outside of Google. So we work with teams, across the various Google offices and get to help them build and ship products, but also we work with the larger community, including lots and lots of development shops here in Atlanta use Google Web Toolkit, and we invite people to come in for the Google Technology Users Group from time to time and get to meet people face-to-face who use the technology that we build right here in Atlanta.
Well, I know that a lot of us are really proud to know that Google has a presence here, such a strong presence here. Again, so much of your culture is pretty well widespread, if not legendary. I know the motto about don't be evil, and, of course, the 20% time, which I guess from your engineering standpoint, that's got to be pretty cool, and that's to spend up to 20% of your time on side projects of your own choosing. But maybe go into a little bit more about what makes Google such a unique place to work from your perspective.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've worked in a variety of companies here in Atlanta, and so I can compare and contrast a little bit. Among other things, I would say Google has a feeling of still being fairly startup-like in some respects. Atlanta in particular, because we're not a huge office in terms of scale at this point. So we know everybody within the office, and we eat lunch together every day. We tend to continue talking about interesting, shop talk about the products we're working on and so on, even throughout lunch, because people are just so energized about it that we keep doing that. So I like that aspect of it. But and in the same sort of way, in a startup, you really basically you give trust, I guess you'd say, autonomy, right? You depend on the people that you're working with to do the right thing and make good choices without having anybody has to micromanage anybody else. So even though, on paper I'm the manager, my job is mainly to help make sure that, obstacles are removed from self-motivated engineers and that they have the resources they need to do something really cool. And so
you're defining a spirit of a team, and I think, from a leadership standpoint, what a great opportunity. I'm not sure exactly I remember the term, but self-generating or self-purposed engineers or programmers. I thought that's a great term, because I think probably one of the biggest challenges most leaders have is motivating individuals. And I think what you're saying in many cases is actually focusing their energies or maybe catching the wave, if you will, into their own excitement and innovative endeavors.
That's exactly it. And we find that when we let people, if we can just generally get the parameters set up right, kind of decide on the direction that we want to go, all the specifics will take care of themselves. If you hire the right kind of people, if you put a lot of trust in them, and you put people together on teams where there's mutual respect, the excitement and energy really just takes on a life of its own. But there's a couple of other things I wanted to say, having been outside Google and then inside, that really seems unique about Google that I don't know if everybody's aware of, but I'd like to share. Sure. I think although I manage this office, I'm also, we've got executives that we follow and are led by in other offices, especially Mountain View headquarters, and just how transparent the executives are with the rest of the company. It's really phenomenal. We get together for TGIF meetings on Fridays, and they share an amount of information with the company that you just wouldn't believe the amount of detail that they go into. The fact that they choose to trust us with all this information it just really reinforces what I'm talking about trusting the people that you hire to make good decisions, and it's very refreshing to be in a company that has that kind of enlightened attitude.
Loyalty is kind of a two-way street. I think when you inspire the kind of spirit that you do and allow people to be part of the process and see that transparency as you're talking about, and then actually see it evolve into an idea, and then that idea into a concept, and that concept into a product. I mean, you got a sense of ownership all the way through that entire process that it kind of inspires you and also gives you a sense of ownership, as I mentioned. So that's pretty exciting. Talk a little bit about your hiring philosophy as it relates to some of these cultural things we talked about. And also, is it the case that you guys are hiring heavily?
We are hiring. You've probably seen the news reports about this being a big hiring year for Google. That's definitely true. You can probably get a sense from the things we were just talking about earlier that, you hire people who are very self-motivated. These are the kinds of people who tend to do projects. In college, they don't just do the work that's required for the class. They do projects on the side, and there's constantly more that they want to be doing. They're very excited about, software engineering. And that comes through more than you might think. You can tell when people are really passionate because they almost can't help but to just bubble over with their enthusiasm for this kind of work. Another thing that is really something I look for when we interview and hire is a focus on the user, like end users of the technology, and that's something that it's easy to forget when you're in the midst of a complex software project. That hey, there's ultimately people who are going to be using this software, and it's really easy to not think about how choices you make while you're writing code and so on will impact the eventual user. But it's crucially important for Google as a philosophy that if we focus on the user, everything else will work itself out. Just make users happy, and so and like everything will fall into place. It's why we go so overboard to make things fast and easy to understand and so on. I want to bring that spirit to the kinds of projects we do here in Atlanta. Even though they're more technical, that doesn't mean we shouldn't go the extra mile to make the software that we develop, easy to use and totally pleasant.
Well, as you're talking, I saw an article in the paper this weekend that coined Generation Harry, and it was a whole generation that grew up on Harry Potter and Harry Potter movies. And where I'm headed is that I'm always confused as to what generation we're into, X, and it's almost like keeping up with G's, 4G, 5G, 6G, what generation we're in. But truly, I would submit that probably a lot of the people that you have engaged and hired and brought into the team environment are users, are people that are as much using the other technology on the other end, so they would have a level of perspective and concern. It isn't just about the programming and how to go about the science, I guess, of it all, but it's also about the art and making sure that it's user friendly and that in the long term is going to be something that people are going to be able to adapt and embrace.
Oh, absolutely true. And in fact, that is an explicit thing that we think about when we're hiring, is that we want to make sure that our own teams, as much as possible, really do sort of reflect the composition of the user base outside of Google too. So things like diversity in all sorts of forms and gender and so on. It's super important to make sure that we are thinking in as comprehensive a way as all of our global world of audience. So you see people from all over the world working even here in Atlanta, and it works really well. I mean, just in this office alone, we can probably speak 8 different languages, and which is it's great to have those kinds of teams. You get so many different perspectives, and I think it makes it more interesting to work in an environment like that. And that's been the norm. Since I've started at Google, it's been that way.
Well, I don't know that I could actually qualify for employment, but it certainly would be fun to join you guys for lunch. I mean, it sounds like a great time over there. Hard work, but work smart and be happy. Let's talk a little bit about perks. I think anyone that would be interested in the hiring situation and certainly knowing about Google, I guess my listening audience would be angry at me if I didn't go to the question, does Google Atlanta's office get the same kind of perks that, say, Google's headquarters do?
That's a great question. And as to lunch, of course, Frank, you're welcome to
Oh, sure,
come
you
to
say
lunch.
that. You say that now. If you saw a strange-looking Italian knocking on the front office door, you probably wouldn't let me in. But go ahead.
Oh, that's funny.
Talk a little bit about perks.
So, we are a smaller office, so we don't get the exact same set of things that you might get at a larger office. Some amount of economies of scale do play into that. Like Mountain View, New York, Zurich, those big offices can do some things that we can't. However, I think you might be surprised what we do have. So you mentioned lunch. I'm happy to say that we do have fantastic free lunch every day, and it's really, really good. The food is sourced locally. We think about that sort of thing.
Well, really,
all the different food is labeled. There's a buffet of fruit and vegetables and fresh made food. Chef Kelly makes some item fresh, like before your eyes, every day, as well, if you want that option. And I said the food is also labeled, so you can get a sense for like if I have a vegan diet, for example, I might want this subset of foods. And then they're labeled with nutritional information and so on, so people can make good choices about what they want to eat at lunch. There's a wide variety of choices, but you want to offer a lot and then let people kind of decide for themselves.
Well, I think, combining what you're talking about with some of the interesting concerns that you guys not just talk about but implement, it makes you think to yourself, the office has got to be like a second home, and the team is almost like an extended family after a while.
That's true. And when you're bussing your plate after lunch, the most complicated thing is figuring out exactly what things to throw away in what different container, because we have, we compost, we have, lots of comprehensive recycling.
Now, don't tell me that you stand there watching that and say, now, how come you didn't finish your vegetables? And all I can keep thinking is, yes, Virginia, there is a free lunch. All you got to do is be able to qualify for Google. Well, is there anything else that you can think about? I'm kind of running out of time, and I hate it because I can only think of a dozen other questions I'd love to get into as far as what I'm sure some of our listeners would be interested. You've really taught us a lot about what's happening. We have a kind of I call it a captured general attitude. Atlanta's constantly competing for image and trying to get the message out that, yes, we are a high-tech, competitive, global competitor, and certainly in some cases we have identified even where Georgia leads. But having the recognition of even a location being established here by Google certainly does a lot to reinforce, if not confirm, that image for a lot of people. But is there anything else you can think about that you'd like to share with the audience?
I would say that the location that we chose here in the heart of Midtown, right next to so many good colleges, universities. We have a good relationship with Georgia Tech. We host people from various companies over the every month or so here on campus here at the Midtown Millennium Building for the Google Technology Users Group. It really is a testament to the fact that Atlanta is an exciting place to do technology business. Just down the street, there's the Tech Square, ATDC Synergy Building. We go down there as often as we can to kind of get a feel for what's going on around there and be part of it. It's been really a great choice of location. When we have visitors come in from out of town, because we're right next to the MARTA station, we actually advise them you don't even need to rent a car. You can just get on MARTA there at the airport and get off at the office here and walk to your hotel, which is right next door. So I think it's really becoming feasible to kind of have this little hub of technology right here in Midtown, and I'd love to see the listening audience, if they're considering, investing and adding to the creation of a technology hub. We'd love to talk about that and see what we can do together to try to build on the momentum that we already have going here. So.
Well, that's pretty exciting. I think, Bruce, again, just in the last year or two, through the research that TAG has done, they've started to really focus on where Georgia leads in several verticals and beginning to draw a community to say, hey, we are more than any individual company, that when we group together, we are greater as a whole. And obviously, in this day and age, I think Google certainly would profess that you can't really travel alone. You really need collaboration and cooperation, and big ideas only get bigger when they get to be, as you mentioned, you get that electricity when you go into the tech Starbucks and be able to feel the energy and the excitement that's in that, but you also bring it there as well. So it's all part of a cycle that's really doing a lot of great things for Atlanta and a lot of good things for the state of Georgia's economy. So unfortunately, we're running out of time, Bruce, and I know from your busy schedule, you've taken an awful lot of time with us, and we really appreciate it. But we not only appreciate you, but we appreciate Google and what you guys do for Atlanta and also for the technology community as a whole.
Well, it's great to be here in Atlanta, great to be part of TAG, and thanks very much, Frank, for speaking with me today.